For a while now, I've been really disgusted with the clothes hangers that my wife uses to hang up my shirts. And the reason is they all tend to end about an inch or two from the end of my shoulder. That always leaves a little puffed up area right there when I wear the shirts. And it seems like there really hasn't been much of an answer. Wire hangers, that didn't work obviously. These big plastic hangers, they obviously don't work. And even the cushioned ones that have the cloth that is they're a little thicker, but they still end right about here. So even with those, I still wound up with this little puffed up area. And for dress shirts, when I get them back from the cleaners, they're on the wire hangers, and if I leave them on the wire hangers, not only do they end still an inch or so from the end of my shoulder, that leaves a little puffed up edge, but then you can see it leaves a line here of that wire. So yesterday in my shop, I decided to solve that problem perhaps once and for all. And I like the design actually, and it's pretty simple. You can see here, I just took a plastic hanger and I cut this wood piece right here that is 1.5 inches wide. And in my case, I made this 8.5 inches long, which allowed the collar in here, and then this fell right at the shoulder. So you can see over here, I have a nice rounded edge, fits all the way to the end of the shoulder. You can see, it's a nice little rounded edge right here. So if anyone's interested, then I'm going to make a video to show exactly how I got all this together. One of the first things I noticed about the different hangers is their different sizes. This one right here, for instance, measures just, it's 1/4 inch, and it's 1/4 inch, so it's a rounded 1/4 inch here and up here. This one is 5/16 on this edge, and on this edge it's just a little over 3/16. Pretty thin material there. The ones that I used to build the other hangers are actually 5/16 rounds, so they're a little bit beefier. And I saw one that was probably 3/8 round. So there's quite a bit of variation between the various hangers. The first thing I did was to mark the center point of this hanging area right here. Took a mark there, and then I came down 2 inches and made a mark on each side, so I'm centered on each side here. And this is just about big enough for the neck of the shirt. In my case then, I measured from that point out to the edge of where my shoulder is on my shirts, and that distance was 8.5 inches. So I put, the next measurement I made then was I placed my wood piece on the edge of the hanger and then marked where this curve is right here on my wood piece. So I'm going to run this through my 3/8 inch bit right here, and it's going to stop right at where this should end right here. Now, I'm using a 3/8 inch bit because that's the size I have. Based on the size of your hanger, 5/16 or 1/4 inch might work even better. But I stopped it on the end. You could make a through pass all the way through if you wanted, but I stopped it down here so when I can make a rounded edge on this end. So I'll go ahead and show you all of that. Now that I've made these little slots for the plastic hangers to sit in, they can be glued in. I'll glue them in and take a brad nailer and nail them in. But now I'm going to go ahead and round over the edges here and on the end. So I now have a nice little groove here in my piece, and the edges are rounded over, including the end piece, so the cloth can drape over this. And so now I just need to get my hanger, glue it in. So I've got the two pieces now on my hanger, and you can see that this sets up inside that little groove right there. Part of the groove left over. I used on this particular one, I used a silicone caulking. That's kind of a mess, although it can be cleaned up with mineral spirits. Yesterday, the ones I made yesterday, I not only used the caulking, but I also used epoxy. Epoxy was probably even more messy than the silicone gel. And I also used CA glue, and at least that held them in place until I could do something else. I'm not sure that I'm satisfied with any of these at this point. But when the silicone sits up, it is hard enough. It probably is going to, if you put any pressure on this piece here, maybe try to rotate it, it might give. And so yesterday, what I did was I took my brad nailer and pinned in this direction on each end, then flipped it over and pinned it again. So I have opposing pins on each of these plastic pieces, hoping that would at least hold the wooden piece in place. And so gluing this up, there was one trick to it, I guess. I wanted these to be 90 degrees to the hanger itself. And so you see I've got the clamp here, clamping this up tight inside the groove. And then I've got this flat piece here that's sitting on my table, and that's keeping this aligned, keeping this wooden piece at 90 degrees. Then the other thing I had to do then was to measure this distance from the tabletop to the edge of the plastic hanger and cut a piece so this edge here of the hanger could lay on that same piece. And that kept it from wanting to sag on me. I've looked on internet to try to find these wire hangers, these wire hooks, that I could make my own hangers, custom-made hangers, and I couldn't find any place that had these for sale. So the cheap plastic ones, you can get them fairly cheap, probably at a Goodwill. You could pick them up for almost nothing and then take them apart. But I guess one of the issues is going to be that this needs to be able to twirl. So I can't just put it into the wood and glue it in. It needs to be able to twirl around a little. So I'm going to have to figure out exactly how to do that. So since putting the plastic in these little shoulder pieces here was just so messy, no matter what I did, I thought, well, maybe I could make my own hangers. And so I did. This came out actually pretty well. So I cut my little shoulder pieces here, and then I cut some 3/8 inch dowels from some scrap stock that I had. I measured the angle here from a regular clothes hanger, and that turns out to be, I don't know, 38 degrees, I think, 38 degrees. So I marked those out. I was able to set this in my drill press and make this hole and then this hole on my drill press. And this is just kind of prototype, so I could have done a little bit better job, but it turned out pretty well. And this is just a hook from a cheap plastic hanger. And it turns out that it has barbs on it that once you push this down inside the 1/8 inch hole that I drilled here, then it has a tendency not to come out and then it will still turn. Although thinking about it, you know, metal hangers don't turn, so you could easily have put a metal piece in here that did not turn and it would still work. And so I've got this glued in now. I've got these pieces here, you know, clamped up, so it will all stay 90 degrees to this piece, to the hanger. And once it dries, I think I've got a pretty good little clothes hanger right here that's custom made to my fit. So this fits my shoulders. You might have larger shoulders, and you can do the same thing then with larger shoulders. Make these a little longer, but I think this works out pretty well, and this turned out to be the cheapest one of all. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and hope even more so, I hope that it's helpful, because you know, I've just been so aggravated for so long with the hangers that we've been using, and decided that it was time to do something about it. So hopefully that'll work for you, and we can get rid of all of those tucked up shoulders that on our clothes when we wear them.